So Shawn Naiden's list. This is beautiful. So we'll go Winter ITC major event. So this is a very big event. It's about 70. What was it? 74 players. Like, sorry, my math is horrible. So very impressive in America. It was only 5 rounds, which is kind of interesting for a major, but hey, I guess it's normal. So here we go. These are the top 3. Brad Chester right here is actually, we're gonna get an interview with him. I know he's playing Ultramarine now. Bad trader. But he is gonna do an interview with us supposedly. So that'll be awesome, and we can talk about Orks because he was doing quite well. Tyranids is number 2, and then number 1 is Shawn Naiden. So let's take a look at Shawn Naiden's list, which I'm sure some of you have seen, but we'll talk about what I think. And this funny, I think Tactical Tortoise or someone went over this and they pulled up this link, and it was some dudes like, never gonna lift you up. After I seen him on the Tactical Tortoise live stream, I understand why he put that. He's a very funny kind of hipster kind of guy. So shout out to Shawn Naiden. Now let's go over his list. So Beast Boss on Squiggle Sword with Edwapis Kill Choppa. You guys always hear me say I like it more on the knob, but it's perfectly fine on him as well, especially if you're not bringing a knob, which you'll see he did not. Gazgul Thraka, of course. I'm a big believer in Gaz now. Took him to an RTT. I've been using him here and there. He's awesome, but he does take a little bit of understanding and not overcomplicating of what he does. Maz, always Maz, best bet data sheet. Knob with the wall banner. So if you've ever been paying attention to this channel for a while, I've loved the knob with wall banner. He's fantastic, but he does take some skill and understanding to use, because you're really just understanding the movement phase with that, and what that he brings with the Big Baba Boys, which we'll go into. He has 1, 2, 3 war bosses. I believe this war boss was Follow Me Lads, was in the big brick of 20 boys. And then he has 2 normal war bosses. And then boom, the awesome finesse, beautiful piece that we all like to see was the war boss in mega armor with super cyborg body. Some of you might be thinking, well, isn't that redundant? He gets that as a data sheet ability. Well, mind you, it sucks. It's just a data sheet ability. And he has a lot of wounds for what he is in toughness. So he's actually a great choice for that. If the Death Kill War check's the best, then he's probably second. So I really like to see that, especially because the unit he isn't going to be that big. So I love it, love it. Now we got the big unit of the boy. Only 1 truck. Love that. Keep in mind, guys, this like I always say, Orcs players, you're gonna give up, bring it down, or assassinate. Try not to bring both, because then the enemy gets a straightforward game plan. Shawn thought of that, of course, because he's excellent. Only 1 truck on this list and 1 battle wagon, right? Because you got to deal with the Beast Boss, Maz, battle wagon, and then put all the points together. So just not enough to pick as a secondary. So 1 battle wagon, I love it. 1, 2 Gretchen units. We'll talk about how he used those. Different than what most casual people would probably use them, right? 1 3-man unit Mega Knobs, 1 2-man unit. I'll tell you, because the stream showed. The 3-man unit goes with the War Boss, and the 2-man unit goes with Gaz. This 3-man unit that goes with the War Boss, from the game I seen, he put it in strategic reserve, which makes sense. It's low. He doesn't have a transport for them. 2 5-man units of what we call the Scalpel unit, the knobs with the War Boss, right? He decided to bring a smaller unit of it. We've seen that all throughout the meta, and it's because multiple activations, the War Boss with -1 the wound makes the damage kind of odd. And even if you kill most of the unit, the War Boss plus 1 or 2 knobs still goes off. And you get to kind of string it out instead of just throwing 1 giant brick out for people to trade with. You kind of get to kill people in small skirmishes. So I love that. And then only 2 War Biker units, no Storm Boys, 0 Storm Boys. So he's a little bit against the meta. Of course, we see no Squiggle Boys and no flashiest of the gits. So keep that in mind. I think people kind of got sick of the -1 AP for the flashiest gets. Also, I think Shawn just wants to play the way he wants to play. From what Art of War is, I think Art of War covered this. Quentin, he's not an Orc player, so he was kind of not understanding everything that goes over here, but we'll go over it. And Tactical Tortoise skimmed this, so we can go over into it a lot more, because I love this. I was running the Knob Water banner earlier, but I think it takes a skilled player because you can get shot. The difference is he was willing to make this a super expensive package by being a Knob with Wall banner plus a War Boss with the most expensive enhancement and the battle wagon. Yep, he definitely put the boys in the battle wagon. So let's go into his matchups. That way we can kind of go on a rant, because I've been thinking about this list for a minute and I really appreciate it. Shout out to Shawn. So his first matchup right off the bat is Chaos Space Marine, the menace of the event. So we have a Chaos Lord with the Mark of Khorne, Enhancement of Burning Blood, Chaos Lord, and Chaos Lord. So this is their iteration of a War Boss. They essentially want him to go off with the unit that they're in of Legionnaires and become similar to how we use the War Boss in the Knob, 5-man Knob unit. 1 unit of Cult Mobus. Sorry guys, I actually getting over a cold, so I'm coughing randomly. I'm sorry for anybody listening. I'll look away. 1 Legionnaire unit, Chaos Rhino, Chaos Rhino, Chaos Rhino, a unit of Chosen, a unit of Chosen. Chosen are excellent, and then either the Chosen. So this is where the Lords were going, of course, because they benefit from each other's data sheet abilities. A Forge Fiend with Ectoplasma, really don't love to see that as an Orc player. They have great profile into most of our things, but hey, whatever. And then Nurgling, see, this is what I mean, that they build to be against other shooting armies for the most part. Whenever you're going to see these powered armies, think about what they're looking at and fighting into them is they're thinking about someone's going to shoot at them with anti-tank high IP weapons, and then they're going to get into combat with them. We don't deal with that. So we play, they don't build into what we do. Two-man units of Obliterators, two Nurg units, Rubric Squad, which is pretty interesting, right? You probably just wanted the Flamers, and then another one with the Flamers, and then Blue Scribe for secondary. So an interesting twist on the allies. Nurglings are excellent. It really comes down to how this person chooses to use them, right? They could just run up and decide, I'm going to try to slow you and move block you, but then you give Orcs a possible turn one charge. They could sit in there and actually add for durability for their -1 hit ability by standing near you. But something that you can pull out here is even with between shooting and fighting, there's not enough activations to reliably kill and halt the green tide, right? Think about, you got a Mazral, you got a Beast Boss and a Squigosaur, you got gas, and you got a battle wagon full of 20 boys. The boys are not only used as a I can run up with gas because in tandem, for the most part, what is the boy mob doing? The boy mob is a tool, not necessarily a hammer, but it is a tool that could be used in a multitude of ways. Let's think of it as like an E-tool or a trench tool, right? Let's say I can use it to cut out an enemy unit by running my boys in, letting them be near gas, using Unbridled Carnage for critical 5s. That way I have sustain 5s, lethal 5s, and just compound that into being able to punch up into units, demolish multiple different kind of enemy units that are hordes or even somewhat elite infantry. You could choose, I'm going to out OC you, I'm going to take over this corner of the board so you can't drop and get within range of me, Mr. Annoying Grey Knight Paladin, stuff like that. Like, there's so many different ways you can go and tag you. I can charge one unit, then use my extra movement to swing a little bit to the other direction and start move blocking people in other ways. Like, that is a high level weapon, the tool in itself, and most people don't even prioritize it. So they'll prioritize, I'm going to go try to run into Maz, I'm going to try to run into Gas, I'm going to shoot maybe a Beast Boss on Squigosaur with the indirect if I can, I'm going to try to pop your truck, I have to deal with your knobs and try to kill them. Like, there's so many things that they can activate while you're still hiding that you're still creeping up the board. They're gonna end up charging into you and end up dying in certain trade. Gaz ends up having a great profile into the Chosen because he's a flat damage 4, so you can end up picking them up. And then even then, like I said, when you have the sustain / lethal, you can actually punch out the Chosen with even the unit of boys. For the most part, rhinos would be annoying. But that's where you can come up in there and decide, hey, Mega Knobs are actually a kind of unit that could kill rhinos if they're both contesting for an objective later in the game. They could just sit there and be like, hey, I might suck at hitting, but I'm reliably wounding you and clearing you off the objective with all my AP, because mind you, there's still Mega Knobs on this list. The Mega Knobs have that AP and reroll wounds, so that sure, they might take 2 fight phases, right? So your turn and the opposing player's turn, blah, 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 back and forth. But they can actually pull down certain vehicles that sometimes knobs might end up just dying because they don't have enough strength or enough AP, and small arms fire while they're in combat, they could kill shot. Terminate Mega Knobs can actually stay there on the objective and fight it and kill some of these units, or charge into them as countercharging by strategic reserving into the battlefield. So when it comes into this, we end up trading with Space Marines a little too well in CSM, and that's how we end up winning those lists. And you just see that we overwhelm them. They're shooting and thinking, I do this very well. Sure, you can overkill one unit really well, but who's killing the bikers while I'm scoring? Who's popping my truck? And they continue to activate. We continue to keep going forward because he's a weird, odd mixture of very durable units with like a bunch of OC and chaff to run around the Orc list I'm talking about. So because remember, he has the Grots and the unit of boys, which he does use the Grots in an offensive manner, like he runs up the field with them. So we have Space Wolf with the Storm Lance. So we got the Lieutenant with Combi Walt, Bolter, Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf, and another Lord on Thunderwolf, a Devastator Squad. Okay. Another unit of Devastator Squad, Fenrisian Wolf, 3 Fenrisian Wolves, Gladiator Lancer, Reaper, Inceptor, Infiltrators, Scouts. Okay, there. I was like, man, where's the Thunderwolf Cavalry? Here's a 1, 2, 3 bricks of Thunderwolf Cavalry. I've played into a similar iteration of this list, not the exact, right? You know what's coming here. Gladiator Lancer staying in the back. Fenrisian Wolves are to run around and do activations, maybe screen with the Scouts. You got the Devastators. The iteration I played against, you have Redemptor Dreadnoughts. This guy chose for like more small units, which I could see being very useful because this list kind of usually runs out of activations when you have so many Thunderwolf Cavalry, and you do need to start a little quicker up the board. You need stuff that can move, don't get in the way of Thunderwolf Cavalry, but they themselves get in the way. There's such huge bases and such. So Orks in this advantage is as long as you are doing your placements correctly on your units, like I'm going to make sure you can't make a charge into my models when I disembark because I'm this far away and behind of a building. Once you shot me with your gladiator, I pre-measured it so that once you move, hopefully you can get into it. And if you do, I have a heroic intervention from Gazgul over here that if you run around that corner with your auto advance, I can heroic with Gaz or something like that, where you can kind of stage units or you can actually get the initiative on them because you are fast running through buildings. Now you do have to keep in mind they have reactive moves you're gonna have to deal with. But the way you really kind of dismantle this army is you start killing its scoring units. You don't let the Inceptors kind of drop wherever they want. And if they do drop where they're going to, make sure you have something that can get in there and kill them after. So yeah, I played into this. It does have its things that it can do, but they don't. And in my opinion, you want to charge them or tag them, consolidate and touch them because their greatest buffs come when they actually get the charges off, right? But Orks do have the amount of damage to kind of deal with them. And when you're dealing with those big units of Ork boys and mobs, you can actually punch them out when you're doing lethal, sustain, and you're going to beat them on OC. It's a weird kind of complex move there. So this would be a fun game to kind of witness, but overall, it's just the Thunderwolf calves end up being like too encumbersome at the top levels of the usually. You can see Shawn put up 97, 94, 96, 84, 81. So he started off hot, slowly went back a little bit on the score. His next list he had to deal with, what is this? Dark Angels Vanguard. Okay, so Vanguard, I actually I think the Vanguard's pretty cool. Not that I play Space Marines, but looking over all their rules, everything that's going on, they have, this list real quick. Asriel, and remember how I was just talking about the meta as a whole, guys, keep in mind, wants to shoot. We always talk about that on the channel. 40k is based off a far-flung future where everybody has guns and we're hitting them with axes, right? So when you see one of these lists, no, for the most part, they're planning to not be shot, and we'll go over why. They do usually have combat potential, just letting you know. In mind, that's how they're building their list. Keep that in mind when you see these themes of these lists. So we got Asriel. That's a great kind of support character and fighty-ish. Chaplain and Terminator armor, lieutenant with a combi weapon. So let's see what this list looks like. We got an intercessor squad, a centurion devastator squad. So this is they have a strat that they can compound. I believe they get like +1 to hit and +1 AP on that when they come in from reserves. Plus they have strats that they can be pulled off the table, put back on the table for the centurion devastator squad. Plus the fact that they're durable and have a 2-up armor save. So they're stacking the innate durability buffs that they're getting for being in Vanguard detachment. So they're getting movement, they're getting defense, and they're getting offense, all from being in the Vanguard detachment, which is what the Centurions are doing. We had a Deathwing Knight squad, right? These guys are great. They can damage. They're going to consistently be able to hold objectives and try to have the out OC there, stay alive. This is one of those units, and they're going to, for the most part, try to get up the board quicker. Let's see if they have the blade driven deep. Yeah, so the chaplain's going to be stuck in there. I believe he gives them +1 to wound and defense to mortal wounds. That way they can't be murdered with mortal wound potential, and they get to start up the board quicker. Orks pay attention to that. Sorry, these lists for the most part have set game plans that they're already trying to do when they're Vanguard, because they think they can just outmaneuver you in every part of the game reactionary. So we got Inceptors with plasma, Infiltrators, Scouts, Gladiator Lancer, and the Caladius Assassin, right? So with Shawn Naiden's list, one of his strengths is one is you can end up using, let's say, the Grots or the Ork Boys, whatever it may be. You can charge into the units of Terminators if you have to. Pull enough of them away from the unit that you want to actually be fighting. And not enough of their models can pile in and fight who they want to fight. They have to fight your boys or they have to fight your Grots. And then your knobs or your mega knobs or your Gaz or whatever it may be can all end up kind of swamping and touching different kind of models, so less guys can fight until they want, so they can get in engaged combat. But the real way I see you kind of dealing with this unit army is to, as you're playing with that mob, you're kind of swarming and taking over, contesting that side of the board. I would have liked to see how it actually goes, but to contesting so they can't just reappear onto these objectives, can't just reappear and scoring their secondaries. Every time they're coming on their field, something like a 5-man knobs, a war boss unit is running out and picking up one of their scoring potential units. Maybe a beast boss Squigosaur is going and touching things constantly. You're just make sure you control and hold all the objectives, put multiple units down, right? You have to deal with a Maz and a beast boss and Squigosaur and a Gaz on top of everything. And if Gaz ends up getting stuck in with something like a Centurion squad, he's one of the few data sheets that can actually start punching them out in a somewhat reliable manner. Or even the Terminators. Normally, they don't have to deal with Orks that have actual multi-damage profiles. So you tag that unit with maybe some Grots, that big unit of boys. The boys are getting their awesome strat abilities off. Maybe Gas still has the bodyguards, has devastating wounds that he gets to get off when he gets on the charge with the Terminators he's with. So there's a lot of ways when you have Gaz, Maz, and all these multi-damage that you can actually deal with this Vanguard unit. And you have crazy OC potential. So you can see he can out-OC you if he has to on some parts of the table. He can skirmish with you with the knobs and the war boss if he has to in parts of the table. And then he can just just straight run damage into you with between Maz and Gaz and popping lethal flash sustain on somebody. So going into, what was that? That was his third one, right? Before I messed that up, I looked away. Yeah, so that's his fourth matchup. And so I'm a big fan of this Knob Wallbanger list, to be honest. Like, don't be surprised if I tell you it ran it one time or some iteration of it. So Eldar, we'll go over this quick because they're boring. Altarg, Wayleaper, Avatar of King, Farseer, Fugan trying to come up. These two guys will be trying to get up because that's what they can do based off that enhancement. The Warlock, Skyrunner, Falcon, Fire Dragons. Oh, that's fun. Okay, Fire Dragons. Hey, what's up? Night Spinner, Rangers, Shadow Specters, Runners, Swooping Hawks, Warp Spiders, Wind Riders. I don't know what mission they played. Wait, did this? Yeah, I was like, did I mess that up? No, I didn't. Okay. I don't know what mission they played. I'd really like to know, but one thing I did come into understanding is, one, we are fast enough to give Eldar some bothersome issues. Two, based off the mission, they do eventually have to come to the objectives. Even a diminished unit of orcs can punch out most Eldar units. They could be taken down to just a war boss and a knob, and they're destroying most Eldar units. So orcs just kind of end up occupying the table. It's like, yeah, you can do all these will shenanigans, but at some point you have to be on the objective. At some point, I am going to get to some of your units to start killing them, and you're not going to have enough shooting with volume at medium. We'll call it medium, mid-strength level, and a good volume to clear us out effectively enough. And then sometimes the Eldar player might make mistakes and start charging you because they're like, I don't know how else to get you off the objective, because they do have, something like, where was he? We did the Avatar. Yeah, they have like the Avatar here that might come contest you, but Gaz is one of the units that can actually kill him, especially if he gets support from other models. Great job there killing Eldar, but you can see it was second lowest scoring game. And then his last game was into CSM. So this is the game that was on stream for on Tactical Tortoise, right? It was the second game. Mind you, one thing I should have said earlier, sorry, is Shawn Naiden said in the funny way on stream, but to him, he said he always takes fixed secondaries. He never takes tactical cards. He said he doesn't own a pack. Mind you, we are not Shawn Naiden, and we don't all have to play like that, and it is a different way of playing. Some high-end players say they would only use cards. Some people say don't use them at all. I've been advising to use the cards because I think it's a more direct way to play with orcs, but the fixed is totally possible too. You just got to build it into your list with hindsight, and I think I might go over that. So anyways, we'll say, and what he was bringing was deploy homers, and then he would pick something. I think in this one he probably bring it down, just in this matchup. So we have a Chaos Lord, Cultist, Legionnaire, Chaos Rhino, Chosen, 2 Forge Fiends, 2 Obliterate, 3 Obliterate squads. Somewhat similar to the other unit we've seen. So I'll sum this one up as a whole. So they played a 4 objective mission. Where the middle one was gone, right? So I'm trying to summarize it in a contested, interesting way. The biggest mistake that I would say, if you haven't ruined the game, is I would say, I don't want to ruin it for you because you can go back and watch, but the Chaos Space Marine player, because like I said, they don't have enough activations with their shooting, even though they have really high we'll say efficiency in shooting, they don't have a lot of activations in their shooting, and sometimes they don't kill enough orcs, so they start getting a little preemptively charging into you because CSM is used to people not wanting to fight them, right? So in some ways we can fight in death and kind of mess with them. We might just survive their fight and end up hitting them back with like the remnant remains of our unit and still kill some of their models. I'm not saying that happened in this game, but I'm saying keep that in mind for what's happening with them. So in this game, the Chaos Marine player did end up getting a little too kind of eager and making charges that he shouldn't have, I would say, and didn't understand how many activations it would take to kind of deal with orcs. And the 4 objective mission, when you're dealing with a 20-man unit of boys with all that OC, right? It was just too much for the Chaos Space Marine player to kind of chew through. So in that as a whole, something like Gas, like I said, can end up punching out Chosen. You still have to deal with Maz. So the person has to deal with, do I use all of my effective shooting assets to hopefully kill Maz? Do I have it to hopefully kill the Beast Boss and Squigosaur? Do I pop the Battle Wagon? Can I even get the boys once they disembark? Do I kill Gaz now? Does Makari go off, or does he just roll the 1 on the end, a 1 right off the bat, and I actually get to kill Gaz? There's so many like very effective things that you're trying to kill that if you don't kill them, the player is kind of ready on the back foot. But if they do, you still have so much other stuff to deal with. And that's why it's not really that surprising that Shawn Naiden was actually able to beat CSM twice in this event, because it's just another version of kind of how Space Marines are, but they actually want to get stuck in combat even more and lack some of that medium potential shooting, right? You could say, I'm going to use the Obliterators using direct fire. It's only once in the game, but that's 24-inch range, and they move very slow. You're going to get in charge of combat with them. You're going to be there for Orc to charge you out, most likely, and you're within 24-inch range, which ends up happening, and you don't even have OC to contest objectives. Think about all these units. Where's the OC? Right? That 20-man unit of Orc boys with the WAAAGH banner, if it does survive, who's going to beat him and take him off an objective. The WAAAGH banner himself during the WAAAGH is going to be, what is he, 5 OC, I believe, by himself. So you have to deal with all that. And that's how this list ends up kind of eroding people. They kill you. They have enough OC left over. I'll tell you what, in this game, it would be a great lesson for you to go back and actually watch how Shawn Naiden used his grots to not only do secondaries, but to actually interact with elite enemy units and stop them from doing what they wanted to do. And I think it's behoove you to go back and actually go and watch that, because that's, instead of me just telling you, you can actually see it happening in real time, and that's a good potential. And that's also why I'm going to get into TTS, so I can actually show you guys stuff like that, because that was a great thing. So Shawn Naiden, great job from Team Battle Brothers. We'll show the list one more time, and then I'll take a peep at the chat. If you guys have any questions about this list, throw them at me in case I missed anything. Of course, things on live kind of go over your head sometimes, but I'm a fan of this list, right? The redundancy and threat saturation, the great amount of OC you have, the multiple activations, but they're threatening activations, and the fact that he is a skilled enough player to do fixed secondaries, to understand I'm going to deploy here, and most lists are going to give up something that I can kill. That's what it seems like was going on in his head. I don't know that for sure. I don't know all those things he picked, but it kind of seems a common trope, right? Most lists are either bringing enough bring it down points or enough assassinate points, just like we are. So that's an interesting food for thought for the future for us gits. And the one trick thing I wanted to bring up here was the Mega Knobs with the kill saw coming in from Rapid Ingress. He did that in the 5th game that we seen. I really like that. War Boss himself is kind of mega armor is underwhelming, we'll say, per his data sheet. I wish he had -3 AP. Wish maybe he had more damage, maybe more attacks, better data shade ability, whatever it may be. The one thing he does have is the durability, and he really throws the Mega Knobs over the top for that +1 to hit, because for the fact that they're -3 AP, rerolling wounds is amazing, and that's something that we really lack in our data in our index. So great job to Shawn Naiden. Whoa!